Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to wrap up today with a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. Today's comes at us from Daniel. Power pop, pop rock, clever arrangement, thoughtful lyrics. That is a description of Drake Bell's Waiting to Say. And this actually threw me really far off because I was like, wait, that Drake Bell? Yeah, it is that Drake Bell, who has done plenty of television and I think some film, but I most know him for the Nickelodeon classic Drake and Josh. I didn't know this dude made music, and this isn't their first album either. This is from 2024. It's their latest. They have like 3 or 4 albums under their belt. Like, they make music. Have made music for a while. Completely threw me for a loop. So let's dive into this, see what Drake Bell is bringing to the table today.
Take me in, love is rare. All the memories we share. But don't forget I'm there, watching you from the fall to the summer's open air. I'm trusting you with all I know. You know of all my secrets, but there's one you don't. I've been waiting longer than I've ever known, just to say
Lovely descending vocal harmonies.
I'd like to go further down this winding
There's an interesting eeriness to some of this chord progression though. Moments like this, they kind of bring the energy down a little bit while keeping the intensity up. Ooh.
I've been waiting longer than I've ever known, just to say
This is a very cool joining together of classic pop rock with modern pop rock.
Say I love you.
What a peculiar ending. It had plenty of direction to just resolve at that big moment and then chose not to. Instead of resolving that last time that I sort of, moved my head into an impactful moment, that should have been the final resolution. And instead, it brought more tension in and had to descend into its own resolution. But it kind of only went halfway into that. The song does feel finished, but it doesn't feel complete. It doesn't feel like a positive ending, so to speak. There is still a little bit of tension left over in that final chord. And so that presents a really interesting twist on this song. I had already mentioned that there was some dark chords throughout. The song consistently subverts its own positive happiness. The song generally, in like 85%, I'm just going to throw a random number out there, vast majority of this track is positive. It is bouncy. It is fun. It is happy. And then there's just these other moments, these isolated chords within a progression or a vocal harmony that just kind of leans into the tension in a very strong way that feels impactful, sometimes in a bit of a sad way, but more often than not, for some reason, I read eeriness out of it. Something unsettling about all of the happiness. Well, at least that's the way I interpret it. Having these moments of unsettling sounds paired with so much positivity. It feels like there is a darkness under the surface mask of this positivity, like it's some sort of reflection that they put out into the world, but it's not who they are on the inside. That there is something less positive, less happy, less functional, maybe even underneath, that just doesn't get an outward representation, but is always there. And so the ending, moving into this semi incomplete final chord, subverting the idea of the big finale chord and instead using that to introduce another harmonic walk down and then to not wrap that one up super cleanly continues this vibe of something imperfect beneath the perfection. It really makes me want to get to the lyrics. I want to know what's going on thematically on the lyrical side of things, where we might begin to see what this bubbling of darkness underneath is supposed to represent. If anything, I mean, it wouldn't be the first time that we got to lyrics and there's like completely off from my musical read. But I don't know any other way to reconcile those moments of tension in a song that, for the most part, feels very positive and happy go lucky. Now, speaking of that, a lot of this song reminds me of the Beatles, honestly. It's classic pop rock. It has a very bright, bouncy feel to it. It sticks with 4/4, harsh accents on all downbeats, pretty much. We do have a nice bit of contrast in volume and layering. We also have the trumpet, and for whatever reason, I don't know if it's the production of the trumpet, I don't know if it's the type of trumpet, it also reminds me of the Beatles for some reason. Not any other band, specifically, the Beatles. There are some chord progressions in here, though, that remind me of Queen. A lot of the vocal harmony stuff reminds me of Queen. And just overall, we have some slightly more progressive, but very palatable pop rock on display here, with all of the positivity that tends to come with that, especially when we're looking at more of the positive hits from some of these bands I've dropped. And I think generally it works well. The acoustic guitar, the clean electric, and the slightly distorted electric all come together to create this nice wall of textures, but also harmony. the three guitars aren't always playing the exact same chord progression, and we end up hearing some interesting collaboration between the three instruments. We have a bass in here that's primarily doing pedal tone stuff, helping to emphasize that chord pulse throughout most of the track. The drums are rather light. Not necessarily that it's like a very light jazzy touch, but just that, we're not in the realm of hard rock here either. There is force, there is some accent, some power behind it, but generally speaking, it's not a super abrasive drum sound, and it's not super complex either. A couple of nice fills here and there, but really just focusing on keeping that backbeat, like everything else, to focus on this core pulse of the song. All of this is really designed to be background against the vocals. There really aren't many elements in the instrumentation that take up any sort of melodic focus away from the vocals. Like a lot of pop and pop rock, the instrumentation is there as set dressing for the focus to be on the vocalist. And that's exactly what happens here. The vocals here are infectious, they're very catchy, wonderfully delivered too. Not to be like totally surprised about it. As I've mentioned in the past, anybody can really be a vocalist if they put the time into it. And I try not to be surprised when I hear really good, clean vocals. But, again, I know this dude from acting. I didn't know he was a singer. And then I listened to this, and he's not just any singer. Like, the dude's got chops. 100%. Some fantastic belts in there, some really nice movements, some very cool harmonic shifts where he's walking down and he starts in one chord and then he shifts to another chord and he has to walk down from there too. So we get some nice modal movement like that in the melodic stuff. And like I said, just general belting, some powerful vocals towards the end of the song, and a nice display of some higher range towards the end as well at the big bombastic finale. But it's not just those vocals either. There's so much more that goes on with this. Much like Queen and the Beatles, the vocal work is multi-layered and multifaceted. We don't just have Drake's vocals at the center of the song, we also have all of the extra vocals. And I think some of those are Drake also doing backing tracks, but I think there's also some extra vocalists on here too to provide some extra textures and timbres to the vocal work. Regardless, there are places in here where I hear upwards of 4 or 5 vocal tracks. Some of them are just ornamentation, just picking a vowel and doing walk downs or some other sort of textural or melodic idea to help flesh out the sound of the song. Like I mentioned, this is very Beatles, very Queen, just using vocals as instruments rather than as a delivery for lyrics. And we hear so much of that on this track, and I find it wonderful. I'm a huge fan of vocal layering. I think most of you know that by now. And just hearing all of it on display here and the dense textures that the vocals bring to the table on this are fantastic. It definitely does feel very retro revival though, in a very similar manner to the Pretty Odd album from Panic at the Disco. This was their second album. They dropped the exclamation mark after the word panic in their name. And unlike the first one, which is dark cabaret, kind of emo, post-hardcore area, their second album was basically a Beatles fan album. Lots of Beatles inspiration on that one. And there are many passages in this song that remind me of parts of that album. Including even the production of it, which is sort of the last thing I want to bring up on this, is that it feels like, much like the Pretty Odd album, a merger of old pop rock ideas, how instruments are used, what kind of textures are included, how the voices are used. Like I mentioned, vocal production and layering was just very popular to have a lot of voices in decades past. We don't see that too often nowadays. It's all about focusing on the artist. They might provide a second vocalization track, maybe in the final chorus, where they'll still have their sung chorus, but then they'll have their runs and faster, flourishy ideas, a spectacle element on top of that as they provide some embellishing ideas to it. But very rarely will you see any modern artist allow their voice to sort of get muddied up or to not necessarily compete with, but to be on the same level as like a backup choir, a backup set of vocals who are going to add extra texture and sound and stuff. And it's just something that feels to me very much of the past. And this song runs with that. The composition, the feeling of the rhythmic pulse, the way that the instruments are layered, their roles as instruments, all of it comes together and tells me from like a purely compositional, what is on paper point of view, this is very much a love letter to past pop rock. But when I listen to the way it sounds, when I listen to the delivery of Drake's vocals, when I listen to the production of everything, when I listen to the way it's layered, it's a very modern pop production here. And I think this is a great way to sort of introduce people to an older sound while still making it palatable to their modern ears. And hopefully maybe even act as a bridge song. I don't know if the rest of the album is like this, so I'm going to stick with bridge song rather than bridge album. But a way of introducing, like I mentioned, ideas that someone might not be familiar with inside of a very comfortable, familiar sound. And it might be what helps people get into some older pop rock, listening to this and saying, oh, hey, I want more stuff like this, and then going to this older stuff and finding that, maybe there's a couple things that are kind of difficult for them to get through. Maybe it's compositional, maybe it's the production of it, the general sound of it all. But they're more likely to stick with it because they already know they like this core idea. They want more of it, and this is a place to get more of it. They can hear things they like, and then they'll begin to acclimate to whatever things were uncomfortable for them, that they were just less exposed to, and they'll become more exposed to it, right? This is one of the great things, I think, about any project that I would classify as a bridge song, bridge band, bridge artist, whatever, bridge album, is getting people to listen to genres of music or styles of music that they don't typically listen to. And it's all about finding what they like and finding that middle ground to introduce them to something they don't typically listen to. And I think that at least this song does a great job of that. I'm going to take a moment to check out some lyrics here, and then we're going to wrap this video up. Okay, this is a beautiful track here. Lyrically, it's about our narrator talking to their lover, and it says, take me in, love is rare, all the memories that we share, but don't forget that I'm there. Verse 2 says, I hope our time never ends as we're lying here in bed. Remember what I said? Don't forget where we've been and just where it all began. So he's saying, we've been together a long time. Don't throw all that away, right? We got a long road ahead of us. We've already been on a long road. Keep that perspective in mind. The pre-chorus, though, says, I'm trusting you with all that I know. You know all of my secrets, but there's one that you don't. And I think this is where the tension is supposed to be present. It is this dark secret that he keeps to himself, the one thing he has never told this other person. And I think that's why this tension doesn't exist too much in the song. I had a totally different read on why the tension would be so sparsely used. We find out, though, that this deep secret that he's never told anyone, the one thing that he's never told this other person who means the world to them, is I love you. Yeah, it's not a dark secret. It's just something he's been feeling that he hasn't expressed yet. It says, I've been waiting longer than I've ever known just to say the words that I want to. I'd like to go further down this winding road, so it's time you know I love you. It's beautiful. kind of sets it up for this, this dark, eerie tension. I got a secret and you don't know it, and I'm going to let you know right now. But then it's like, it's super sweet, it's super light, right? It's very charming. And that's the whole song. So then that makes me wonder about the ending. The final chorus is no different than any other chorus. Just says, I want to go down this road with you even further. There's a lot of time left for us, and I love you. Right? Never said that before. Now you know. Let's do this. Let's continue this trek together. Let's see where the road takes us. And then for the song to end on a half resolution there. Even the tension within the track, I don't know if it technically fits. Like I said, it kind of captures the idea of a secret, but not like this. This is a playful secret. That tension doesn't feel playful at all. And so I don't know how what read I'm supposed to be getting on that. Lyrically, this is just a beautiful song. There's nothing bitter in it, there's nothing dark in it. It's just consistently positive in all ways, and that matches a vast majority of this song, but not every moment of the track. There are certainly ways to add tension to your chord progression. You need tension for resolution, even in something as bright and poppy as this, but I think that they went a little overboard on it. It suggested something darker than I think that they were ever going to explore thematically, at least as far as the lyrics go. And like I said, for a song as, I'm just going to use the word sappy as it is here. I mean, there's no negativity to this. This is sugary, sweet, love song right here. And then for the ending to do what it does, it had a perfect opportunity to, I mean, they set up this chord progression for a perfect resolution. All they had to do was stick the landing, and they chose not to. They had a huge gap to sort of imply this is going to be the big moment, and then it wasn't. It was more tension that had a walk down of tension into a semi-resolved final chord. I don't know how to read that. Unless it's supposed to be subversive. That this person confesses their love for this other person, and the ending indicates that it doesn't go over so well. I don't know. That's like I said, I wasn't expecting the lyrics to be so sugary sweet. It's wonderful, beautiful lyrics. I love the sentiment behind it. I love the playfulness behind it. Wonderful song. It's just the couple of parts in the music that I'm like, how does that work? Something else that caught my attention, though, kind of lines up with this being influenced by older pop rock albums, is that there are 35 tracks on this album. A lot of them are short, sub 1 minute, I don't know, interludes every once in a while. Um, there's also a lot of really short tracks on this. We have a couple that are in the 5 and 4 minute range, but a lot that are also in the 2 minute range. 225, 240, 211, 214, even we have a 135. It feels a lot like checking out something from the Beach Boys or the Beatles, where there wasn't really a consistent length to songs. It was part of the fun exploratory element at the time of, you can put out a 40-second song and it feels complete. Nowadays, I mean, even I've made this criticism about those older tracks and their short runtime. I'm like, that kind of feels like a demo. Why was it included at all? It's just a very different time, and this feels very reflective in that. Despite having 35 tracks, it's only an hour and a half long of an album, which, showcases just how short most of these tracks are. So I wonder if it isn't a massive love letter to pop rock of the past, all wrapped up in the production and paint of modern pop music. If so, that's a pretty solid idea right there. I enjoyed this track. I might end up checking out some of this album, but given my kind of 50-50 attitudes towards some of the pop rock albums of the past that I've checked out, I'm not sure it's going to be something that totally sticks with me, but tracks like Waiting to Say, that was a fun little jam. However, these are just my thoughts on Drake Bell's Waiting to Say. What are your thoughts? Did you enjoy this? Is there anything that stood out to you that you would like to add on to what I said, or maybe even correct me on if I said something wrong? Do you have a different interpretation or opinion of this? Please put all of those and any other thoughts you might have down into the comments section. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree, which takes you to this, where you can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, and a link to the Discord server, as well as a bunch of other things. I mean, there's a lot of options there. Just go there and start clicking on buttons, see where it takes you. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. That wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, though, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.